Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brendan Hauser with EVOQ Bike. We have Logan Owen on the podcast today. This guy has so much experience. It's just wild to take a step back and look at his career as a cyclist, and he's only 29 still. 10 national championships in cyclocross, goes to the road, hits the world tour, going into gravel. We talk training, nutrition, his story, just the whole gamut of things. Logan, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Everybody hit him up on Instagram. Good luck with your training and racing, and enjoy the podcast. We'll talk to you soon. You know what? Before we even get into this, because there's so many great topics. Dude, you've just been in the game. And I'm like, I don't even know where we go with this conversation. He's got you've forgotten more about cycling than more people will take on in their lives. So
yeah.
what's
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you to introduce yourself for the couple people that might not know who Logan Owen is. Who is Logan Owen?
Logan Owen. I'm Logan Owen. This is me right here. I grew up kind of doing BMX. I've been a professional cyclist for, I'd say, 10 years now. I came from Axel Merckx's program. I started with cyclocross. Hold on. Let me back it up. BMX, cyclocross, then got into road racing, then got onto the Action Hawkins Berman program. Kind of went through that, and then ended up on EF for a while, doing the big world tour bike races, and then now I'm doing some gravel stuff.
Hell yeah!
And so been quite the journey.
It's been the journey. What's your favorite discipline?
Definitely, I like cyclocross. Cyclocross has always been my favorite. It's just now I would if I had the choice and that was what I could do the entire time and just purely focus on would be cyclocross. It's been my love since the beginning. But yeah, there's not the opportunity to make a living full time just racing cyclocross unless you're living in Europe full time, and even then it's not necessarily a glamorous life, let's say.
Yeah. Can you go in on that a little bit more? Because actually, I mentioned to somebody that we were chatting. They're like, this guy's a huge crosser. He's like, dude, ask him why he left cross. I want to know that. And I was like, and it really would kind of spark as I was digging up like your history a little bit more. Because I had seen your name. I think, did you race for Cal Giant at one point?
Yeah. So I raced for Cal Giant my last year as a junior.
Okay.
And on the road, and then I was also sponsored by them in cyclocross, and then once I ended up going to Action when I was in U23 on the road, I was still with Cal Giant in the winter for cross, like just for a little bit of crossover time, and it was mainly due because they both were dealing with Specialized at the time, so it was kind of okay, but then eventually I just decided to focus on the road because I saw that I had a potential future on that. And so, then just kind of gave up on the cross
Were there
thing.
people like mentors or people older than you saying like, hey man, the road is the way to go? Like when you had mentioned being in
Yeah.
Europe and it's
So,
not really a great CX lifestyle, or what made you pick the road?
so I grew up racing. Well, no, shouldn't say that. So my mentor who kind of got me from cyclocross to kind of focus on the road a little bit. This was back when I was like 13 years old. His name was Joe Holmes, or is Joe Holmes.
Okay.
And he had kind of always been a road guy, and I just kind of had the natural like bike handling ability to do cyclocross. So like we kind of worked together, and he kind of helped me build an engine while I just kind of had the natural skills. I never really practiced too much for cross. I just kind of just rode on the road a lot,
Mm.
and then. Which, not saying that was the best thing to do. I mean, I probably could have been better if I just had done some sort of off-road skills and stuff. But yeah, he kind of got me into that side, the road cycling side, and he was obviously probably trying to push me more so on there. And then also, I mean, every team I went to was like, yeah, you should probably just focus on the road. But
Okay.
I mean, cyclocross at the time was big. Like back then, I'd say it was kind of near its peak because like Louisville Worlds were my last year as a junior, and then that was kind of like the peak. I would say that was the peak for American cross. Um, and I had opportunities to keep racing cyclocross full time, but it was risky because I didn't know like where that sport was going, and I also saw that there was a lot more opportunity on the road to make big money, not just like six or not five figures on
Mhm.
cyclocross, essentially. Um, so yeah, I kind of tried to. I made the decision myself too to decide to do that, even though I love cyclocross.
Was that Tim Johnson era still, or is that more Jeremy Powers?
It was Tim the crossover kind of.
Okay.
Tim
Okay.
Johnson, because Tim Johnson did Louisville Worlds. I can't remember if he kept racing after that or what.
Okay.
For how many years? But I think he did. I think he no he did because there was pictures of me and him like racing uh, as a under 23 when I was on Cal Giant.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Would always cross over paths with those cross guys as they would do like Green Mountain and maybe Killington as like an
yeah,
early, I
yeah,
think that was May, or now it's early May. But yeah, it was always interesting when those guys would come and start getting ready for their season as we're kind of winding
yeah,
down on the road.
yeah.
What do you think that the lack of need for doing the off-road stuff was more just from the BMX background? Because my friends who BMX and then get on the road, they're so, I mean, I suck at bike handling. I will say it point blank. They just, I mean, they're like doing all these tricks and stuff. I'm like, I'm just gonna stay wheels down. Is that?
Yeah, it's. I think there is some cross. I think it's more just because you're comfortable on the bike. Like you're not. You're just a lot more. I don't know. Yeah. You just have that comfort with the bike.
Mhm.
Um, I do think cross helped more so because I mean, having a BMX bike like the wide handlebars is like it's a different
Mhm.
aspect. Like I feel like the crossover would be better for mountain biking
Mhm.
personally, but yeah, I think a mix of that with the cyclocross background definitely made it like having done the cyclocross just made it kind of easy for me, I
Mhm.
guess. And I was doing it at such a young age. Like I started doing cross when I was 9 or 10, and having done that at such a young age, I feel like I learned really quickly, and I kind of learned how to handle the bike a little bit from that, and then yeah, took it over
And
the
did I
road side.
gather correctly? 10 national championships in cross through those years?
Yeah, yeah. Between junior and under 23, I did 10 consecutive national championships. Yeah, and
So,
then gave it
sorry, go
up.
ahead.
Well, then one year, the final year that I did cyclocross, I did the elite national championship, and I ended up getting third. I was actually really bummed about that one because I got sick leading up to it the week before, and I was flying. I was ready to win. Like I was so motivated, and then I got sick, and it was kind of a bummer. But yeah, that was the one. I think Jeremy won that one. It was in North Carolina actually.
Okay.
I think it was Ash.
What year are we talking about now?
Fuck, I can't remember.
Because then Junior Worlds, dude, you're behind Vanderpool,
Mhm.
Mads Pedersen. Like I can see this like seesaw of you're crushing cross, then you're
Mhm.
going to Junior Worlds, U23, Liège, Bastogne, Liège. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like uh, just crazy results, man. It's what do you
Yeah.
remember from those early road days of was that also pulling you like you're I mean, those are mega results.
Yeah, I mean, definitely after I won under 23 Liège and then I had the win at Tour Utah, I was like, okay, I think like I can do really well on the road and I should probably give it some focus. That's when I like kind of was in my head deciding like, yeah, this is something I want to pursue and because it gave me the confidence to do it because I know like racing on the road, it's tough. There's a lot of people doing it. There's like the talent pool is really big. So like the opportunity maybe isn't as much as with cyclocross because it's not as big of a sport. But yeah, I saw that I had the talent and the natural ability to do it, so I wanted to really give it a go.
On the road, are you more into classic slash 1 day races or do you prefer stage races? Because it seems like you've done a bunch of both.
I mean, I had always been better at just like 1 day events, for whatever reason. I There towards the end when I was with EF, the when I did the Vuelta a couple of times, I was
Mhm.
actually doing really well on those the longer Grand Tours. My first one, I didn't like. I got sick and I had a bunch of like there was a couple of crashes I had and I like had to fight really hard to finish. And then the next one was when I actually felt like I could have done something. And
Mhm.
there was times where I was up in the front and then like again, I would have like there was a big crash or something and it would take me out of it. Like the one chance I would get to go for it in the final.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was kind of a little bit of unfortunate events, but
What's that day
afterwards.
like? Because I think for amateurs and people that don't race a Grand Tour, we hear
Mhm.
about these stories, but was it the day, was it, leading into that race, like, hey, this is a great stage for those of you guys who've been helping out. If you see yourself in an opportunistic position, like, go for it today? Or do you remember how that day played out at all?
Yeah, so normally we would be riding for our GC leader at the time. I think the second year we had Hugh. That's when he got third overall. Um, so we were kind of like all in for Hugh, pretty much every day. And then I remember there was like 1 or 2 days that like it was kind of like a uphill sprint finish, which kind of suits my abilities a little bit. And they were like, ah, just give it a go if you want to. If you see like the opportunity to get it, then get in there and go for it.
Mm,
And then I did, and then there was a big crash, and yeah,
bike racing.
bike racing, yeah.
Yeah. So you super
That-
punchy guy as opposed to like long
mm,
climbs, or how do you describe your like?
I used to be more punchy, but spending a lot of time in the world tour definitely got me to a point where I was better at. I was also training that doing the longer power, like doing threshold efforts and
Mm,
doing those 20-minute efforts, 20 to 30-minute efforts. I started to get a lot better at it, and it was a good mix. And I was kind of coming around to a point where I was getting good enough to challenge for wins in a lot of these races.
mm,
And then yeah, I hadn't like I've had a lot of unlucky situations. I had knee injury like going into the year that was kind of my time to show up and be the leader at some of these early like Marseille. No, not Marseille. What was the name? What was the name of the race? I don't know. Some of these earlier French races that we were doing, I can't remember. Um, yeah, I can't think of the name of the race. I don't know why.
mm.
Anyway, yeah, it kind of took me out of being kind of the head of that. Because we were doing like team camps there to kind of lead up to the races and everything. And I went to the team camp and I couldn't ride, and I was like, it was a
Oh.
big bummer because they were putting some pressure on me to do well at those events, and I was ready for it. I just yeah couldn't pedal
What
my
was the
bike.
knee injury?
I ended up just hitting like my coffee table when at my
Oh
place
my
in
gosh.
Spain, and yeah, I don't know, like I just kept training, and all of a sudden my knee just swelled, and I was like, oh, that's not good.
Oh
I didn't
man.
have a lot of pain when I hit it. Like it was obviously it hurt. Like, you hit your knee on a coffee table, whatever.
Yeah.
It hurts. But because you're working so hard every day and you're pushing your body to the limit every day, it just kind of accentuated it, and then it got slowly worse. And I took some time off the bike. I was like, all right, I need to take like a couple days off. Like even though it sucks, I don't want to, I have to. And even that didn't help. I was off for like about a month and a half without being able to, because every time I would bend my knee, I don't really know what it was. It was literally just right on the top on the tendon,
Ouch.
in the center of the kneecap, and it just yeah, I don't know.
You kind of opened the conversation. I always love to hear about people's intervals in training, and I know people that listen love the nitty gritty when you talk about threshold efforts and maybe 20 to 25 minutes. What's a session related to that where before you might have a little anxiety, you're like, oh damn, this is going to be a tough day.
Yeah. So for me, it was always the threshold efforts that were hard. Like you
Okay.
do like like high zone 2. You do like the zone 3 stuff. That stuff's not too bad. Like you can do that pretty easily. Obviously there's not super easy, but you're not stressed about it. But the threshold stuff, like the over unders that my coach was having me doing at the time, I'd be very not necessarily worried about it, but I'd have to like pump myself up, and I'd be like,
Mm.
I'd have to get going and wake myself up in the morning, make sure my tunes were ready. Um, yeah, we would do what was it? We'd start off with like 12-minute, eight, well, eight to kind of open it up, and then as you get better, 12 minutes. As you get more fit, then I feel like the highest point it was like 16 minutes of over unders,
Okay.
which is yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long time.
Uh, I could tell you numbers too, but I don't know if you need to hear numbers. But
Yeah, we hear you can get as granular as you want. Yes, people
yeah,
love this stuff. I love it at
uh,
least.
yeah, I would say like back when I was doing them on EF, my peak was probably I was doing like my overs were like 420 for 2 minutes, and then my under was like 390 for 2 minutes.
Okay.
So it was,
You're
yeah.
real close around threshold, just a little over, just under, over under.
Yeah, that was probably the peak though. Like I was at a really good point. That was before Dauphiné, the year TJ. I think that was 2019, maybe when
Okay.
TJ Van Garderen he got second. But I was really fit for that. I was there with him like through all the mountains, like getting him to the final climb, into the final climb, and then I was done. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, no, that was probably the peak of my career, I would say, fitness wise.
Do you feel like the over-unders were more beneficial for you than constant power? Let's say, did you ever do constant power, like go do a 4x10 at
Yeah, yeah,
400
no, I
watts or
would.
whatever it was? Or
uh,
how did you and your coach like decide which way to go, or when did you use which one?
I felt like the over unders for road racing was better because there was a lot of surging. There wasn't a
Mm,
lot like you're not just sitting at 400 watts or
mm,
420 watts for however long. Like there's surges when teams are going on the front. As minor as they are, there is a lot of surging going on.
mm,
Um, so I felt like that helped more, and I also felt like it helped build the capacity to do it more rather than just staying at a steady state. Because if you train doing like a steady state, you get really good at going at that pace. But
mm.
what sets the difference is when you're able to step up from a high pace and go for 2 minutes and then drop back down to that pace, which is what typically if you're on a climb and people are starting to attack, that's kind of how you are trying to prepare for that race. So,
So this is interesting. This is sort of a theory I've had because I came up, if we're talking like my first coach, 2012 ish, way more constant power. We never did over unders. It was like straight up
mhm.
threshold, VO2 max, go race your bike. Then I had a coach from Europe who was he was way more into over unders, very little constant power. The thing with that, which I really do think it helped my threshold increase. But then if I was in like attacking off the front, sometimes I like expected the over under, like I kind of had a hard time pegging it. So my
Mhm.
latest theory is that when we're talking about, build using constant power to maybe build the fitness to a certain point, but it's that over under is that kind of next cherry on top slash race prep.
Yeah,
Would you kind of agree with that maybe?
I would agree that it's a good base to just do the steady stuff and then start going to the
Adding.
more intense. Because I would say over unders are just slightly more intense than if you were doing it steady.
Right.
And obviously then you go up to like zone 5 and 6, and that
Yeah.
stuff like doing the 40/20s and stuff like that really is between that and the over unders. I feel like are that's the best race prep that you can do as far
Mm.
as getting ready for road racing.
My last over under question, when you're doing like the 12-minute chunks, are you doing three of those, four of those? Was there any like specific duration you tried to
Mm,
get to overall? Do you remember?
yeah, so I would build up. I'd start with like 3 by 8 minutes just to like get warmed up, like with the it. This is like over a course of weeks.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd start with the 3 by 8, then it'd go 4 by 8, and then it would be or wait, no, I think it was 3 by 9. Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Two and one, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shorter one, and you do like three, and then you do four the next time. The more your body's getting used to it, and then you go up to 12 minutes, and then you do three, and then you do that for like couple of 2 3 day blocks like that, and then or you mix them into the 2 3 day blocks of
Right.
whatever. I think we were doing like also zone 3 at the time too. But and then you would go up to 16, or you do 12 by 4, and then you would go 16 by 3. I don't think I ever did. I maybe did 16 by 4 at one point, but that's a lot. That's a lot. 16
Yeah.
by 4 is a lot
Yeah.
because that's over an hour at about like doing I guess it equals out to your threshold, but yeah, that's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot of
What's and you mentioned 2 to 3 day blocks. Do you still kind of roll with that, like 2 3 days on, 1 day off, or how do you look maybe at like a month long of training?
I do. So how I have it now, I've given myself a little bit more freedom because I'm just kind of coaching myself. So now I'm just doing it like how it suits people around the area that I can train with.
Mm,
So like a lot of people are open on the weekends and they like to go ride and do longer rides on the weekends. So what I'll do is I'll have like Monday as my rest day. Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll do like a 2 day block that day. And then I'll do like intervals, then I do endurance. So it's like I'll do like 3 hours of intervals, whatever the intervals are. And then the next day it'll be like 5 hours, 6 hours of endurance. And then take an easy day. Then back to it with an interval day. And then the weekend I try to just do like long endurance with my friends and get the long hours in, because with gravel it's not nearly as punchy, obviously. It's a lot of steady state stuff. So it's not like doing over unders don't really, I mean, they help you, but I think you just need to practice more steady state, long, just grind type efforts.
So I'm interested to hear you say that. What do you feel, how do you feel though about the beginning of the race? Because I know a lot of people that, and maybe this is just because you're naturally more talented at that, but I feel like some lower level riders are like, dude, that first hour was freaking people going mayhem. We hit the double track or like the two dirt Jeep roads,
Yeah.
tire track. Like, how do you view the beginning of the race?
I mean, for me, the beginning is always the easiest because I
Interesting.
know how to position myself and I know when to use my energy and when I have to go full to get to like the front and the going into a section where it turns into a double track or whatever.
Mhm.
I know like it's very similar to a classic. Like you lead into the cobble section, you know you have to put the like waste your energy there, even though the section is like supposedly the scary part. That's not the scary part. The scary part is being in position, because if you're not in the position, it just blows up, and it, like regardless of how hard you're gonna go, you have
Mhm.
a lot of work to do after that sector or whatever, like that whatever that point that the point of interest, I guess, is. And the section never really is all like you don't do crazy numbers on the section, because a lot of like with gravel, it's more technical a lot of the time. I feel like
Mhm.
it is hard. Don't get me wrong. You're like going full. You're going really really hard through the sector, but I feel like the lead into it is the more important part of it.
I'm wondering
Um,
if you just don't
but for
realize how
me,
strong you are.
yeah, I mean,
People
for
are
me, it's
gonna hear
just
this and be like, "Dude, screw this guy. He's telling me this race is not
it.
hard."
It's different. So it's like I've done it for so long. Like that's what we did in the world tour. Like at day in day out. Like I'm constantly. That's what my job was leading people into the like leading the main leaders into the sector, making sure they were in good position, and then making it through the sector and making sure that I was still with the trying to be with the front group as long as possible, so I could
Mhm.
be there for the next time and the next time and the next
Mhm.
time. So for
Okay.
me, just doing it once at the beginning of the race is like whatever. Like you
Right.
just go hard and it's simple. Like I don't. I think I've had that natural ability. Doesn't mean you shouldn't train it, but uh, I feel like for me personally, the longer efforts and the more sustained power over the course of a gravel race is more something I need to focus on. And I
So
guess if you aren't like that, then maybe you should also focus on doing hard
yeah,
lead into sections for
no,
like
it's
5 minutes
good.
or whatever.
So what kind of prep will you do for the upcoming Lifetime Grand Prix that's specific to the gravel? Then, when you're saying like the constant power, are you talking longer tempo stuff, or just longer threshold stuff, or all of the above?
I do long, like I do high endurance. I do a lot of high endurance. I do a lot of so it's like 270, 280 watts for like 2 hours. I'll do like a 30-minute warm up, then do it 2 hours at 2 to 2.5 hours at that pace, then cool down. And then yeah, kind of build into the tempo, doing tempo at like 320, 330. For do that for like 3 by 20 or 3 by 15. I start with 3 by 15 and then go up to 3 by 20. And then yeah, the threshold stuff. It's more the threshold stuff. I keep steady now because I'm like I
Mhm.
don't see the nearly as much benefit in doing the over under stuff.
Okay.
And that's honestly that's the extent of what I do. I don't go too crazy for the gravel.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're getting ready for a mountain bike race, I'll throw in some high intensity work, but it's I yeah, I mean Chiquamigan and Sea Otter are the only ones. I'm not gonna be attending Sea Otter, but the other ones for sure. I think that's a smart thing to do. Leadville, you don't need it. That's all just long efforts. Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you what your top five were gonna be for lifetime. No, no sea otter. So what's
Hmm.
the other? Do you have an idea? Are you gonna go to six others?
Yeah, I'm gonna do. I think I want to do as of right now. I want to do Unbound. I guess maybe Leadville again. I don't love Leadville because I don't live at altitude. So doing all the altitude races, I don't enjoy. So
Yeah.
that maybe Crusher. Crusher is short enough that I can kind of like suffer through it because it's only like 4.5, 5 hours. It's not crazy long, but it's like it's full gas. It's not.
You're there. I think you
Oh,
muted yourself for a second somehow.
yeah. I was trying to. There was a phone call coming through. And I was trying to end it, but sorry.
That's all right.
Uh, yeah. I'll do Crusher, probably Unbound. Maybe I skip Leadville. I don't know. I don't think I want to do that one again. That one was hard. Like really hard. And if you're not spending a month at least at altitude, it's just not, yeah, not fun. It's not fun.
Especially there, it's so high, man. It's like
Yes,
it's crazy.
I got like
Crusher.
I mean last year I got really fit for it and I did everything I could at sea level. And granted, some of my equipment wasn't top notch, I'd say. Like as far as like weight wise, my mountain bike was kind of heavy. It was like 25 pounds, so it was like
Mm,
it's a little over. Yeah, I put myself at a disadvantage for sure. I think I could have done a lot better had I had a lighter mountain bike, but it's what it is. What it is.
yeah. Oof.
Um,
That sounds like a slog. And I don't even mountain bike, so I can't speak to that. But that's the race that people always say, "Oh, you got to go do Leadville." I'm like, you don't know how bad I am off road. No, I'm gonna be the roadie that's dying on the. There's always a story about somebody who just overcooks a descent, and I don't want to be that guy.
it was kind of scary. I'm gonna be honest. I
Really?
haven't
You
done a lot of
you saying
mount.
that? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
there like when you go down. I remember when you go down power line. I
Hmm.
remember going down that last year and it was pretty full. I got caught out of position. I didn't recon the course. I haven't reconned a lot of these courses, and I was taking my gloves off. And I was like, "Fuck, why are we going so hard?" And everyone's like sprinting for the turn to go up power line, and we were going uphill. I was like doing well. I was feeling good. I was like taking my gloves off, and I was like, "Oh, this is not the right time." And I ended up getting caught out because of that. And then it's like single to double track, mainly single though. And so I had to make up a lot of ground. And then I just missed the front split by like a little bit after the descent. Like they were probably 5 seconds ahead of me, and I just couldn't close it by myself because they were just rotating full gas. And then I was just chasing the whole time. But um, that downhill off a power line was so steep. I was like, I'm scared. I kind of backed off a little bit because I was like, I hadn't done a mountain like a downhill like that before on a mountain bike. Luckily, did have a dual suspension, which helped and made it easier and whatnot. But I was a little caught off guard with that one.
No,
Um,
you totally sealed the deal that I will never do this race. It's
yeah, I mean, I wanted to do it in the future again. It's just like there's so much prep to it, and like if you just
right.
don't live at altitude, it's a lot. Like, and
Mm.
I'm gonna like sponsorship right now is not. There's not a lot of sponsors that want to like support and give you real money to kind of do these gravel races. So it's like you got to weigh your options. Like you can't just go out and spend a month preparing for this race at altitude at a place that's not super cheap, you know? Like it's going to altitude is never really cheap. And it's always pretty expensive to do the housing and staying up there and getting the rental car, the flights, everything. It's not a cheap scenario. But yeah.
What's your take, or how do you see the lay of the land with sponsors and gravel and just where things are in 2024? I only ask that because I'm curious of someone who's been in the world tour, you've been racing a super long time.
Yeah.
How are you taking on now that you're doing your own program? Has it been a good thing to go into? Is it a lot of challenges? No, yeah.
It's not been good. No,
No.
it's there's been a lot of I mean, my situation with being in the world tour, I got uh they kind of told me last minute that I wasn't going to be on the team, and then I was supposed to have a contract with what was it at the time? Quebeca. They were getting taken over by a new sponsor, which ended up being Q36.5 or whatever.
Right.
But that was supposed to take over. I was supposed to have a deal with them. But that year they missed their World Tour license because the UCI, they were extending it for the UCI. I don't know if you remember it, but there was a situation where they were the UCI was extending the deadline for them a couple of times, and they
Okay.
were trying to make things work and get it together. And because there was quite a few guys without contract that year,
Hmm.
more than normal, and so they were trying to make it happen, and it just never did. And then the following year is when it did. But then I kind of was forced into like a situation where I decide what do I want to do here, and I was like, okay, I'll just try to do gravel, I guess, because that's what everybody else is doing, and
Hmm.
there wasn't a whole lot of options. I mean, I could have maybe gone and raced on a pro conti team in Europe, but it like the amount of money you make for how much it costs to live there and everything was not, especially with like being American with the visa, and it's not a cheap it's not a cheap deal. So yeah, the I ended up kind of just going down the gravel road because it seemed interesting. It seemed fun. Like I wanted to try it out and see how it goes. So the first year, which was 2 years ago, I didn't make any money really at all. I got bikes essentially, and they paid for my way to get to the races. So it was kind of weird going from six figures to not making any money. And
Hmm.
then yeah, I was doing some like side work on the over here, just like doing like Uber Eats and like some other stuff just to kind of keep myself going.
Hmm.
And then last year I was with Reeds, making a little bit of money, but there's again not a lot of sponsorship going through there.
Hmm.
Like to get a bike was kind of hard, and it's like yeah, you're kind of stuck with whatever you get. And right now I still don't have like my race bikes yet. I'm still waiting for them and getting everything ready. And yeah, sponsors don't seem to want to put a lot of money in. Just is that's the way it is right now.
Yeah. So you with Reeds now? Or are you doing totally solo?
I'm currently dealing with reads. Yeah, that's
Okay.
the right now is the plan. But yeah, things are a little bit. Yeah, it's been very behind. Still, not a lot of um, hard deals yet. So
Yeah. It's even, I know some guys doing different things on the road here in the States and otherwhere where one guy says, like, man, I could buy our new kit from the store and get it before our team has gotten them. He's like, I don't know what's going on. And I know some people got left out of Redlands. And if people look close enough
mhm.
at the rosters of who's racing with who, it's not the team that they're on. And it's like, what is going on? It's just a weird start
Well,
to
there's just like
the
the
year.
cycling in the U.S. right now is in a very bad place. Like there's hardly any races. There's no sponsorship money. There's people. A lot of these people are just racing for just a race. Like they're just
Mhm.
not. There's no professional level to cycling right now in the U.S. Like
Mhm.
if you're doing it, it's just kind of the Wild West. I think
Mhm.
people have used that term previously quite a lot for this time, but yeah, I'm hoping it'll pick up soon. But it's just I don't know. I think after COVID, everything went downhill, and I think it was already going downhill, and then COVID kind of like squashed it pretty hard.
What do you think made it go downhill? And I'm actually really curious. I mean, do you feel like the teams do a good job for these brands?
I mean, it's hard for me to say in the U.S. like because I during that time where I feel like it was really going downhill, I was doing my own thing, focusing on the European racing
Mm.
specifically. I feel like there just wasn't a lot of money in the race. It's really with the races going away, like California, Utah, Colorado, all those things going away. Like really, I mean, it left the door open for sure for other big races to kind of like pop up, but there nothing really came through because I think at that time when those things were going away, that's when COVID happened, and so people
Mm.
were like, "I'm saving my money. I don't want to invest in anything like this." So
So, I mean, if they're
I
going
don't.
away, were they just losing money, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I think
Because,
so.
like, no one's going to pop up for, like, oh, you guys are losing money. Maybe we can make it's just, I love cycling. I just always am curious about this topic because, you
Mhm.
know, I laughed, and maybe I'm just an idiot, but I was talking to somebody, and I didn't know Ineos was a car manufacturer, and I said it, and someone's like, "Dude, they make this huge truck." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen. Now, Geraint Thomas does post himself with the truck because I started looking through riders on
Yeah.
Instagram. Like, does anybody talk about this truck? Does anybody talk about what Ineos actually is? I assumed incorrectly that it was another telecom like Sky, and so I was like,
Gotcha.
it is definitely not that. So I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
think sometimes even us as riders, even on amateur teams, I talk to guys when I ran into them, like, you got to talk up this brand. They're giving us 20K to go do Cat 1 races. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So,
No, yeah, I think there's a certain level of like, there needs to be a little bit more talk about the sponsors that are actually putting in the money for sure. But I just think a lot of it was just timing. It was just really bad timing overall. Yeah. Ineos, I also didn't really realize it was a car manufacturer. I put two and two together eventually once I saw them like posting about the Grenadier car and whatnot. I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But
yeah. But
um,
it took some time, like
it
for
took
the
some time because
biggest
it's not
team in the world.
initially you're not like what
Yeah.
you just you don't make that connection. It's just and
Right.
I think I think there needs to be a little bit more. Um, I don't know the right word, but just a clear picture of the sponsor and what they are. Um,
Yeah.
with EF, it was simple. Like we all knew what that was. They
Mhm.
told us, and then we were doing kind of some activation stuff for EF. And yeah, their model fits really well because they're a travel company. They're a or not a travel company, but they do study abroad deals with
Mhm.
students, and it's not cheap obviously, but it fits the traveling brand of cycling essentially while you're
Mhm.
constantly going around, and it is very much an international sport, cycling. So I think it kind of for them it worked out really well, and that's why I think they're still in it. But yeah, some of the other ones doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just a lot of just free money, and they're just like, hey, I want to have a cycling team, and
Right.
they're not necessarily making money off of having a cycling team.
Yeah. Keegan Swervel's been on a couple times and he made a comment of even MVP or no, not MVP. God, that the health company, he's like, they didn't know anything about cycling. He goes, I really couldn't connect the sponsorship to our team. It was very odd, and but they gave us a ton of money. And it's like I wonder who's writing these checks sometimes. But when you talk about
Mhm.
the activations in Europe, I'm sure, was it a lot different of a vibe when you're a pro cycling team and you go and do activations in Europe? I mean, you guys are, you know, well-known athletes there. I lived in Belgium
Yeah,
very briefly, and I was
yeah,
amazed at how many people knew riders and like, dude, this is our
yeah. It
American
is.
football. So like,
It is
it
cool. It
made
is cool.
sense.
Yeah,
Was it?
yeah.
Did it just seem weird when you're doing stuff in the States? Like, because no one really cares about cycling except for
No one
us.
cares. No one cares. You're
Yeah.
just a normal person. You're like, oh, you ride a bike. You're lame, bro. You're lame. And then I'll be in Europe and I'll be hopping on a plane and be like, oh, are you Logan? Do you ride for EF? Can I get your autograph? And I'll be like, what?
That's
What? It
crazy.
just like catches me off guard because I'm like, how do you know who I am? Like,
Right.
it's weird how big that sport, how big cycling is in Europe, and how much people look up to you. And because like you constantly are signing autographs before you do races at the World Tour races, you're doing all this stuff with kids. Like you see kids running around, they look up to you, like they think it's so cool, and that's a really cool experience. But when you come to the U.S., people it, yeah,
Get
cycling's
out of
just
the
such a
road.
small. Yeah, yeah, get out of the way. Yeah, it's like it's crazy. It is crazy. But yeah, I it's kind of
Where
crazy that our country is so big and we don't have nearly as many people in cycling. Um, big
I think
talent pool.
endurance sports in general, you know, like there's
Mhm.
track and cross country, but people kind of do that in high school, and unless you're hitting the collegiate level, I don't
Yeah,
know a ton of people that ran that still run or competitively run. You know, people do like a turkey trot,
yeah,
but yeah, I wish I would have been a way better person to grow up in Europe and be exposed to endurance sports than
yeah.
everything I played as a basketball, volleyball, soccer, baseball. Like, and I was, you know, I was meant to be more of an endurance athlete and just never saw any of that.
No, yeah, and because even if you're a runner or a track athlete in the U.S., it's not a glamorous lifestyle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not making a ton of money unless you're the best of the best,
Mm-hmm.
and you like are pulling in the big money sponsors. It's just you have to be marketable. Essentially, is what it comes down to at that point. And yeah, it's yeah. For whatever I don't know. I'm not the all knowing person, but it seems kind of messed up.
So what do you think? Can I ask you, what do you think? What's your plan for moving forward? How will you make this sustainable? Are you kind of just taking it year by year and feeling out how
You're
lifetime goes?
Yeah, year by year, kind of. I'm kind of seeing how things are going, what it's looking like, and I mean, I'm definitely fully prepared to have a normal job here soon. I'm gonna be
Mhm.
completely like transparent. It's
Yeah,
just that's how it is.
yeah.
Yeah,
What about
it's
breaking necks in NCL? Let's get you back to crit
no,
squad.
I've trust me, I've reached out to people. Like, I just haven't heard anything. They just,
Okay.
I don't know. I think they just want to keep their crit group, and they don't want to. It seems like there's not a lot of outsiders being brought in.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I'm open to it. It's just the other thing that I wasn't super excited about was how dangerous road cycling has been getting.
Mm.
So
Mm.
when I didn't have a contract with EF, I was like, oh, obviously you're bummed. You're not, like, you want to keep racing. You want to keep racing at the top level. It's a cool experience. Like, you get paid well. Everything is great. Like, you get to go train every day. It's a good, like, you live a good life, but you also get injured a lot. And when you get injured, it's like people are dying now, and people were dying at that time, like, consistently, and that's scary. Like, you're going down, like, we're going faster. These bikes are like, people are like stronger, and you get a lot of teams bringing in guys that don't have the bike handling abilities
Mm.
to kind of be in those positions. So it's harder to trust the people in front of you. I mean, you have to. There's no other choice but to trust them. But they don't necessarily have the skills to follow through on it. So sometimes there's big crashes and people like get seriously, seriously injured or die. And that part was really scary to me. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I started weighing my options. I'm like, it's like, is it worth it to keep racing and making good money to do this, or like lose my life? It's just, yeah, it's a sport you love, obviously, too. So there's a lot of factors to weigh in there, but yeah, it was a little bit intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's been interesting from an amateur standpoint, and maybe this is me getting older. I'm 42, but I feel like there's just way more YOLO. I don't care if I crash, people doing crazy ass stuff that when I think back to races in, I don't know, 10 years ago, like, yeah, of course there were crashes, but there just seemed like there was less unnecessary chaos. And maybe I'm just, you know, being old and not wanting to
I
crash.
feel
I
the
don't
same
know.
way. Honestly, I feel very similar. I feel like people now just are getting into the sport. They have natural talent and ability, and they just don't necessarily know how to do it, and they don't understand the repercussions of hitting the ground on a bike. They're like, oh, if I crash, whatever, it's fine.
Right.
You just get back up. You're
Yes.
crashing on a bike, whatever, it's fine. But they don't really understand how bad it can be, and I feel like that. Yeah, I think that there's a miss.
You
There's
said
they
it
don't understand.
100%. That's exactly how I
Yeah,
feel. Of like, oh, well, who
yeah,
cares if we crash? Whereas back then it was like, oh, dude, I crashed. Now you got to check your bars. You got to check your bike. You're at a stage race. You got like all this other stuff you want to be doing. And like, no one cares
yeah.
anymore. And I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I should just do master stuff. So,
And honestly, the gravel, that was another draw to the gravel side, is I feel like it's a lot safer.
mm,
Overall, it's a lot safer.
yeah.
Um, you can kind of control you. It's not like you're in a giant pack of people and like you're worried about somebody else crashing. Like, you are in control of kind of what you do. Sometimes there's little crashes here and there, but they're not too bad. I wouldn't say never,
Mm,
but they're not too terrible.
mm,
And yeah, I do feel like you have more control over what happens with the crashing. Um, so I kind of enjoy that part. Yeah, same with mountain biking too. Mountain biking is typically a safer. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of people that don't know anything about cycling. I tell them like, oh, like, I'm doing mountain biking now, and I tell them it's safer, and they're like, that doesn't sound right. That sounds way different. What? I'm like, no, trust me, it's much safer. Like,
uh,
maybe you could break a bone or whatever. Or maybe like it's just slower crashing, and
right.
you're hitting thing like, I just feel like there's not as much room for extreme
Mm,
crashes.
mm. What's curious over having such a long career in so many different aspects of cycling? Like, what have you learned over these years that's made you better at cycling or better to attack your future career in cycling?
Um, that's a hard question to answer. I don't know.
What
I don't
let's
know.
put it in a different way then. What are some things that you've learned that maybe you don't even apply to cycling? What are some good lessons that you could maybe think of that you've picked up that you might just be still carrying with you?
Mm, that's still a tough question. I have to think about this one for a second.
Okay.
I guess one thing I've learned, I think just mainly because of my situation and how I exited the world tour, I'd say definitely don't take things for granted for sure.
Mm,
Because you never know how long you're going to be doing what you're doing.
mm-hmm.
So enjoy it while you can. I think that's the biggest one, I guess. But that's more of it, it's very specific to my situation. But yeah, I feel like it can be used in a lot of other
Man, I
things
think
going
that's
forward.
great because as you're saying that, I'm thinking to other things in my life that some life things change on a dime sometimes. And
It
it's like
does.
when you ask me where I live right now, it's like I'm in North Carolina. If you'd asked me that even 5 years ago, I would have North Carolina. What am I doing here? And yeah, life pivots and changes, and no, that's really good. I like that.
Yeah.
It's let's are you into bike tech at all for as you're getting into the gravel stuff? Because it seems like a lot of people are very into like tire pressure, tire size. Da, da, da. Is that something that you're leaning into, or are you just like, I'm just gonna go rip?
I think I'm a mix. I wouldn't say because I really feel like there's only so much you can do to go faster on in gravel. Like it
What
really.
are those things?
I mean, I feel like having an aero gravel bike is
Mm,
smart. I think having like aero equipment on your bike if you're trying to race, like fully race, if you that's your goal. I think
mhm.
aero equipment on the bike is very important. Some like slightly deep dish wheels. It's all important. I mean, these guys are doing all the like. I see a lot of people in the Lifetime series. They're doing everything. They're doing the most for the aerodynamics, and at the top end, it makes a difference for sure. But I feel like people that aren't going as fast as us are. It's kind of a waste because gravel is a slower like speed than on the road. On the road, it makes a lot more sense, but in gravel, I mean, you're doing 20 miles an hour. That's
Mhm.
not. I mean, you. It is enough to get some aero gains, but it's very minuscule
Okay.
overall. So like the aero booties, all that, I feel like don't really make that much of a difference. I mean, maybe it saves you 1 or 2 watts, but it's like
Right.
1 or 2 watts is not going to win you the race.
Right.
And it's
We're
yes,
not we're
it's
not doing aero socks. That's always comes up on this podcast.
yeah. I mean, I'm not the guy doing aero socks. Doesn't mean I'm never going to be the guy that does aero socks. I'm just saying right now, I don't see. I could see it benefiting for sure, but I feel like really what comes down to it is putting in the training and putting in the work. That's the biggest thing.
Oh yeah.
Once you do all that, then you can maybe look into like change like slicing off all that.
You're
And
more like wheels, frame, helmet is what I'm
I think
picking
those are
up.
very important things. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. I think tires are very important as well. And when it comes to gravel, I think tire, not necessarily the pressure, but the tire choice is a very important thing.
What do you choose? How are you deciding what you
Uh,
choose?
I mean, just from my experience, my short experience of racing gravel, I would say like I like excuse me.
Yeah.
I like the Pirelli ones.
Okay.
The Pirelli, I don't know what they are. Can't remember the name of them.
That's not the
The
Cinturado, is it?
it's well, so it's like they have it's the Cinturado, but there's like a bunch of different letters for each one, and I can't
Yeah.
remember the
H.
letter
Have you
for the.
tried the H? I
I think
actually,
that's the H is the one. Yeah,
yeah,
that one's really good. I think
that one bangs.
that one's fast. It's really fast. You have good control with it. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like you don't want a lot of like a ton of side knob. You need a little bit, but not like crazy. Like I feel like the Vittorias are a little overkill. They last a little bit longer. I just don't think they're faster.
Okay.
I'm trying to like I haven't tested too many tires. Like I think who would be a really good person to ask about this would be Alex Howes because he has that
Okay.
sponsorship with Bike
Oh,
Tires Direct or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
and he has
Yeah.
all these, he's able to test all these different ones. I think he would be a really good person to talk to about it because he has the opportunity to test all those tires.
Yo,
But
Alex, we're
just
coming
from
for you. Come on the podcast.
exactly, he's a good dude too, so I think he would enjoy it.
And
Yeah, no,
you helped him out at in Knoxville, man. That was a
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah,
When he won, yeah, no,
yeah.
I wouldn't say I did a ton, but I mean, I did what I could to help him. He At the end of the day, he had to be the strongest one out there, and he smashed it.
Still
That
though,
was
I'm
all.
sure even if you know from races you've won, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's like sometimes your teammates that maybe they didn't have a great day, just having your boys there, it like
Yeah,
gives you
just
extra.
knowing that they have your back and they're like here
Oh,
to work for you is very motivating for sure. Like you
yeah.
know that you're yeah. No, agreed. That's definitely motivating.
What's the okay? So tires. Oh man, I had a question about that, but okay, so you're gonna go probably with those. So do you switch it up, or when you say you haven't tested a lot of tires, are you just gonna switch it up based on the race, or try and stay with the one? Oh, that's what's nice. What
Honestly,
width do you use? How wide do you go?
I go with the 40s. I think the
Okay.
40s overall are just the best all around tire because like I don't like again sponsorships. It's hard to get. It's honestly just hard to get product too sometimes. Like they'll say, "Oh, I'm sending you stuff." Hey, I won't see it for months. I'm like, "Hey,
Yeah,
hey guys, kind of need this."
those
So it's
races.
like I just leave like I feel like the best all around tire is a fast tire with a side knob on it. Like
Okay.
overall, that would be my go to. Um, I mean, some races are yeah, you could get away with a like a file tread without any sort of side knob, but I'd say overall, it's not. I feel like it's minuscule difference between the two because most of the time you're riding on the center of it anyway, and it's not really hitting the side of the side knob. So yeah, I think it's those are all. I mean, that's like the main thing.
I know
Uh,
we're I know we're at 2 o'clock. Do you have a couple minutes to chat nutrition real quick before we go?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cool. I want to respect your time.
yeah. No, you're good.
Nutrition, long gravel stuff. Or let's actually talk like lifetime Grand Prix races. Say you're doing a 4 or 5 hour banger ride or race. What are you doing for nutrition?
So I'm doing like some sort of carb mix in my bottles, definitely.
Okay.
I feel like that's a really important thing to have. Just over the course of a long race or ride, I feel like you're just a little bit fresher at the end. I'm constantly, yeah, I'm eating food every 45 minutes to an hour, along with the carb mix. Um, and you have to train your body to be able to do that too. It's not like you can just jump in and be able to eat and drink all that over the course of a race or ride. Like you have to be consistently training and your body has to be used to like digesting all that food and it doesn't destroy your stomach. And with the bars can be very, I don't know. I do these, what are they called? Um, Nature Bakery bars,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
thick
Big
things that you
bars,
can get at like Costco. Honestly,
blue,
those are
purple,
really
or
good.
red.
I like the raspberry one.
Okay.
Yeah, the raspberry one's my favorite. I tried an apple cinnamon one the other day too, which is not. That's a pretty good one for the winter. I feel like because it gets a little warm in your pocket. It's like a little like apple pie type deal.
There
Yeah,
you go.
kind of.
What?
Um,
Sorry. What carb mix you using?
I was using this Infinite Nutrition
Mm.
uh, carb mix. I like it because it's isotonic, so it doesn't really hurt your stomach too much, and you can get a lot of it down. I'm trying to
How
think.
much
The
do you
other
put
one,
in
I
a
mean,
bottle? Do you weigh it out, or are you just doing a scoop? Do you know how many
I just
grams it is?
do. I do 2 scoops of whatever it is. I do like whatever their recommended, like the highest recommended thing is.
Okay.
If I'm doing like a shorter ride, sometimes I'll just put like 1 scoop in one of the bottles or 2 bottles, whatever. I don't really when I'm doing intervals, I don't really like try to do the carb mix just to keep the. I mean, just to kind of keep the cost down and like getting that stuff too. Like I'm like sometimes I'll get it for free, but sometimes I'm just also having to buy it. So I'm just like I'll use it when it's necessary. Which with the long rides, I feel like it's really important. Long races, 100% important. The shorter 3 hour like efforts, I don't think it really doesn't change much. I can eat enough in 3 hours to keep
Yeah.
myself feeling good.
Have you ever done just sugar water?
I've done like honey and salt in bottles
Mm.
before.
Super sweet.
Uh, yeah. I don't know if I like that so much. I think it's not a bad alternative, but I definitely feel like having the carb mixes that you can buy are definitely, they have a lot more in them that'll help keep you going.
When you talked
Um,
about food, you do solid food, or are you eating just those like raspberry bars, or
I'll do a mix between gels and that,
okay,
essentially. Yeah, in a race scenario, I think I'm doing half gels and half of the bars because
okay,
when you're trying to eat sometimes and it's full gas and you're like bars are like
yeah.
bouncing around these and you have this little nature bakery bar in your hand and it's like you don't want it to slide out and it's like yeah, it's not easy. Sometimes I'll hit a gel for
Would
that.
you, are you okay? Is your body cool with like taking on a Nature Bakery bar full gas, like just the
Yeah.
pellet in your mouth? And okay,
But
yeah,
you have to train your
practice.
body to be able to do that. You
Yeah,
can't just like, I'm not going to say that anyone can just go out there and smash and then just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to down this nature bakery bar when I'm going hard. It's not probably, might not happen. You might be spitting it up. I don't know.
fair warning, everybody. We got to get
Because
you the Nature
they can
Bakery
be a
bar
little dry.
sponsorship.
They're a
They
little
are a
dry.
little, yeah, a little dry.
So I
That's
think when it's hot, I do like to do like the scratch bars instead. Those are because they're a little more moist. But yeah, I don't know.
cool. Man, this is awesome. Did any points we didn't hit on, or any like getting deep, big piece of advice for people listening, or any parting words for the people, or things we didn't hit on that you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered a lot of it.
I
That was
really
my life in
appreciate
a
it, dude.
nutshell.
Dude, it's
Life
awesome.
as a bike racer.
It live of a bike race. So actually, what's I have two questions. You're on Instagram, obviously. Do you blog or tweet, or what's the best way for people to keep up with you this year?
Honestly, Instagram is that's the main thing I use right now. Um, yeah,
And what are
Instagram.
you doing? Say you decide you do lifetime. You're like, you know what? I don't want to do this. Where would you? What do you want to do after cycling?
I honestly don't know yet. I'm still kind of figuring that out. I really don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, I have no idea. Probably go to trade school or something to become I don't know,
Yeah,
electrician.
you're only 29. You have a lot of time to figure this out.
I do have some time. I feel old though. I'm gonna be honest. It's
Yeah.
weird going from the guy that was always young, and now, and you hear this over and over again, and it's just like I'm just another one of these guys saying this. But now I feel old. I'm 29, and I'm like, what's going on?
Dude, you're not old. Let me tell you that right now. This is
Coach.
that. It's something I'm very like hypersensitive about because I went to Clemson road race this weekend and we're
Hmm.
like yo P12, let's go da, da, da. And I don't know, like there's I don't know 40 people, 50 maybe 50 people in this race. Anyways, we're on two sides of the road, so I'm like just chilling in the back, and this dude looks like he's like, oh Brendan, what's up, man? I was like, hey, what's up, dude? He's like, yo, are you doing this race? And I'm like, as opposed to he's like, oh yo, you're not doing masters. I was like, oh god, man, come on, bro, let me just be in this race. So
That's
almost every
funny.
race now people are like, oh, you doing masters, you doing P1 too? I'm like, damn, let me just still ah
Hey, just let me feel young, please.
let me
Let
feel
me feel like I
young.
fit in here.
but
Okay.
but it's definitely like people who are touring like, dude, why is this guy still here? Like,
Yeah,
go be
yeah,
an
yeah.
adult and do something else. Like, there were, yeah. So no, man, you're super young. I was actually, when I was looking back today through like pro cycling stats and just catching up on things, and
Hmm.
like, man, he's 29. Wow, this is what he was doing in 2013. Da da da. I was turning 30 in
Hmm.
2012. And so it
Okay.
was like,
Yeah.
bro, you got tons of time. I know it's different when some random guy tells you that, but you'll look back when you're 40 and be like, oh, damn, okay, I was really young. So
Yeah,
much
yeah.
time.
No, it makes sense. I'm gonna definitely probably feel that way in 10 years from now.
Yeah. I think
Uh,
also if I was you, and I was talking to Keegan about this, and it's kind of something you mentioned before of, you know, it's so hard being the American living in Europe. And I said to
mhm,
Keegan, I was like, yo, dude, but the way I see it is you're waking up, you're in Portugal, and I understand all the stress that you have in your life, in your bubble that you see. But like,
mhm,
take a step back and realize you're waking up in Portugal. You're going to go do this race,
mhm.
whether you are stoked about it today or not. Like, you're going to look back. It's like a pretty sick life that you're,
It's a cool, yeah, no, it was a very
yeah.
cool experience, and I would definitely wouldn't have traded it for anything else. Like, I think it was
Yeah.
really, really fun, and I'm happy I did it. Like,
Yeah.
it's, yeah. No, I loved
Well,
living in Spain. Beautiful.
Where in Spain were you?
I was in Mallorca, and
Okay.
it was actually probably the best time because I moved during COVID, and I had like I could just go train. There wasn't a ton of cars because a lot of people weren't allowed to travel and
Right.
do much. So I had like the beaches, the like everything to myself essentially, as opposed to like what it normally is, which is a huge tourist area.
Okay.
And it gets very busy, so you have to be really careful with cars. But it was really nice. It was great for the time I was there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Logan, everybody, thanks for tuning in.